Into the NBA. That's where the story between Kawhi and the Clippers, it continues to develop. Remember, last week, the Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast reported that Kawhi had an alleged $28 million no-show endorsement deal with the now bankrupt company Aspiration in what many have questioned as a cap circumvention. Shortly after the report, Clippers owner Steve Ballmer, he denied these allegations to our Ramona Shelburne.
Up front, I want to say one thing very clearly. We, the Clippers, have abided by the salary cap circumvention rules because that's the right thing to do. And we have done that. I happen, for what it's worth, to think it's a very important rule in terms of promoting competitiveness and equal playing field across the league. But whether I agreed with it or not, it's the rule. And we've absolutely abided by that.
So a very clear denial from Steve Ballmer of any salary cap circumvention. And at yesterday's Board of Governors meeting, Commissioner Adam Silver, he stated it would be up to the NBA to prove any wrongdoing by the Clippers, and the league needs to look at, quote, the totality of evidence rather than just, quote, mere appearance. But he made the potential ramifications clear to our Vince Goodwill.
How broad do your powers extend as far as the collective bargaining agreement, as far as penalties you can assess to the Clippers, to Kawhi Leonard?
My powers are very broad. A full range of financial penalties, draft picks, suspensions, etc. I have very broad powers in these situations.
So that is what could be on the table if the league hired New York law firm looking into that relationship between Aspiration, Kawhi, and the Clippers finds any wrongdoing. Now, one central question in these allegations has been, since the company Aspiration was struggling financially, how were they paying Kawhi Leonard this alleged large sum? Well, Pablo Torre, he had new information on his podcast, which released Thursday morning.
Something happened just 9 days before the wire out to Kawhi's KL2 Aspire LLC for $1.75 million on December 15th.
On December 6th of 2022, a wire in from DEA 88 Investments in the amount of $1,999,999.59.
According to my 7 sources, as well as Aspiration's internal cash forecast for sponsorship payments, which is a spreadsheet I obtained, one of the company's absolute top priorities, despite the total financial show enveloping this company, was simple. Pay KL2 Aspire LLC. According to this Green Bank's Silicon Valley bank statements, please tell us when exactly Aspiration finally does wire their months-late second payment to Kawhi Leonard.
December 15th of 2022.
On December 6th of 2022, a wire in from DEA 88 Investments.
I said to myself, should probably look up the registered agent on file, and it turned out to be a man named Dennis. Not Uncle Dennis. Dennis J. Wong, our different Dennis, is the vice chairman of the Los Angeles Clippers.
So as we welcome in our senior NBA insider, Brian Windhorst. Brian, I think it's important to note here that overdue payment to Kawhi, which Aspiration made a priority amidst this financial turmoil, it was allegedly made the same day as it laid off 20% of its workforce. That's according to Torre. So there's a lot to process here. Let's distill it down. What do you think is the single most important thing to take away from this new information?
The details that Pablo revealed last week were incredibly compelling. They also allowed the Clippers to have plausible deniability. That did not mean they were innocent, but when Steve Ballmer came and had that interview with Ramona Shelburne, he had plausible deniability. And as Adam Silver said, the burden of proof was on the league. These revelations that came out today had substantially less plausible deniability because of the amounts, because of the relationships involved. This one is going to be harder to explain. Now, Adam Silver made it very clear yesterday that it is dangerous to take a snapshot of something, especially when you're talking about very complex financial records, and that he would encourage and allow the investigation being done by Wachtell Lipton out of New York to play out before doing anything. Considering this is not just the vice chairman of the Clippers, but also their alternate governor, Dennis Wong. This probably will widen the scope of the investigation. And like I said, in the court of public opinion, which is not relevant, this one is very much harder for the Clippers to eventually have to explain.
And again, the appearance of wrongdoing is different than a finding of wrongdoing, which Adam Silver was very clear to hold judgment until the investigation has completed its course, which could take longer if, like you're saying, this requires a finer tooth comb. But Brian, what are you looking to hear next? Whether that's from the Clippers at Media Day, Kawhi Leonard himself, where we hadn't heard weigh in, what do you think is the next chapter here that
investigate the teams? They can take the cell phones of Clippers employees. They can look at Clippers email documents, but they can't look at other companies' financial statements. And because those unknowns are there, it's very difficult to predict. Obviously, we will hear from Kawhi later this month when the Clippers gather for training camp. I would be very surprised if he comments on this, considering the various investigations going on, including federal investigations, of which this company Aspiration is involved in. And I also will say that this investigation, I think, will take a very long time to play out. But it is unpredictable what will happen next.
Yeah, that's an important point, that this company is being investigated by the DOJ, and it's not just the NBA. There are other branches here that are going to need to play out as well. Brian, thank you so very much for that insight. We have a lot to get to on today's show. The Today Show yesterday, and he was discussing how he's extended his prime, and he said this, quote, "I'm going into year 17 and really have this belief that I can be at the top of my game again and win at the highest level." He is 37 years old. He led the league in three-point shooting last year. Brian, do you believe that Steph can still reach that apex level here?
I do. I think he was fabulous last year. You know, he has been on the All-NBA team 11 straight times when he's been eligible. That one year where he had the injuries, only played 5 games. Other than that, 11 straight years. He's led the league in three-pointers in 4 of the last 5 seasons. He actually had the second best free throw season of his career last year. His physical conditioning is excellent. Okay, he may not be in his prime anymore. No, the Warriors no longer have the best roster in the NBA, which they did throughout a big portion of his career. But I see no reason to believe Steph Curry is going to materially slow down anytime soon. And if I was a Warriors fan, I would be very excited by those comments.
Very excited about those comments. A little concerned about the construction of your team. I think the biggest thing that will help Steph Curry is getting some help. Send the man some help. Now, we know that the big issue going into, I guess, the midway point for the Golden State Warriors was winning the non-Steph Curry minutes.
Right.
Add Jimmy Butler, and they started winning. Just a little bit of bad luck towards the end of the playoffs. But still, they need to find a third star so that he can really cook. We know Draymond Green's there as a facilitator, but Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, and someone. Now, I know the asterisk is around Jonathan Kuminga. That situation, figuring that out, navigating that. But if they're able to find that star and improve, that is where Steph Curry will truly shine. He can do bad all by himself, but we want him to continue to elevate and, you know, play these meaningful games. And so that will take a team effort.
Right. And when you look at the fact that it was Steph Curry who said after he won Finals MVP, who's that? Who's that?
But I'm saying we already know. We already know about Steph. We already know about Steph. This is not an individual sport. This is not golf. This is not tennis. You need a team, right? And not only do you need the team to help you win the championship, because that's what Steph is trying to do towards the last part of his career, is bring home number 5. You need to limit the distractions. And right now, it's still a distraction right now for the Golden State Warriors and Jonathan Kuminga. Janae, you just alluded to, you just talked about it, right? What are they going to do with him? They need a third star. Can he be that third star? A guy that you drafted in the lottery, a guy that shows he has a promising future, and you're still in the midst right now of having turmoil with this young man for his contract negotiation. He don't feel wanted. I don't know if he wants to be there. I don't know if Steve Kerr really wants him to be there. I don't know if Steve Kerr really believes in him. So when you talk about Steph Curry, we know he's going to do what he's supposed to do. He's going to max out. But again, you need the organization not to have distractions. And right now, this is a huge distraction, and you don't need that going into this season, into training camp.
Perk, you basically want Jonathan Kuminga, his presence to be felt, right? You know, for them to make a decision. I thought you would come in Debo in this segment. You just were like allow me to reintroduce. I thought you were gonna come in stronger, Perk.
You know what?
Came in too smooth with
It's
it.
only Thursday. We still got another show for him to make sure to reach that level. But Perk, since you brought it up, that one-year qualifying offer, $7.9 million, right? That's what's on the table. And that would give Jonathan Kuminga an implied no-trade clause and allow him to become an unrestricted free agent. That's next season. So Kuminga, the clock's ticking. He has until October 1st to sign that qualifying offer, or they could agree on a longer deal, but that hasn't come to fruition in the last couple of months, and time is getting pressed. So, Brian, how much of Golden State's success this season do you think is going to hinge on what happens with Kuminga? Because we certainly have been talking about it a lot.
I think it's what happens with Kuminga's salary slot. And so that's what the real thing is here. Kuminga has not been able to establish himself with a solid role. And when he's often been at his best, it's when the other Golden State Warriors players haven't necessarily been on the court. And so what the Warriors have been trying to do here, although they would never announce this, is they're trying to sign Jonathan Kuminga to a contract that enables them to trade him, because they know he does have value elsewhere in the league. Kuminga naturally wants to be paid like he has proven of his talent. And so that's